Well, let me flip the coin then.
Yeah.
What about men when it comes to women? I feel like it's almost astronomical when it comes to men looking at certain women in a certain way versus, like, let's say there's a bottom 85% of women that guys just don't see.
Yeah, but that doesn't exist. So if what we were saying was true, then what we would see on dating apps is, so just to give you an idea, the top 10% of men on dating apps get 63% of the right swipes.
Right.
10% get 63. Top 20% get 83% of the right swipes. The top 40% get 96% of the right swipes, which means the bottom 60% of men are getting 4% of the right swipes. Okay. For women, the top 10% of women, or I'm sorry, the top 63% of women's right swipes go to 43% of women. So remember, it's 10% for men, but 43% of women are getting. Men are right swiping 55% of the time. Women are right swiping 5% of the time. So the distribution does not average out, meaning the girl who is not attractive is still getting outrageous levels of attention. And I'll show you some videos. There's one girl like morbidly obese, like lives in a trailer park, and she goes over like how men send her thousands of dollars a month just to like hang out with her, send her pennies, like crazy stuff like that. Men are in such levels of desperation that no, we're not at the same level. It's I believe under the age of 30, it was 2/3 of men are single and 1/3 of women, right? And those 1/3 of women are single because they want to be. Those 2/3 of men are single because they have to be, for the most part. So. Yeah, the distribution is not the same. Women in general, this is the way I had explained. Aaron Clary said this, and someone else said it. Is like women in general are not interested in men in general. Mm-hmm. Women in general don't like men in general. That's just the way it is. They like a few men up at the top, and then complain about those men because they have so many options. But in general, that's not the case. And it's the dilemma of perceived choice. So what happens is because a woman fucked a 10, she thinks she can date a 9. She thinks she can get a 9 to commit. So because she fucked Drake, she thinks that she can get like the super hot male stripper she knows because he's below Drake and she fucked Drake. So she thinks, and because the difference between short-term dating and long-term dating is lost to them in often cases, they start believing the attention they get short-term will equate to long-term. Another really crazy example is like a woman she'll swipe 600 times for every one date she goes on. I believe it's something like that. Wow. That number could actually, I believe the number was like for 10 dates, it was 16,000 swipes, some crazy number like that. So in her mind, she's left swiped on thousands of men, over 10,000 men. In her mind, she believes she's more attractive than those men. She believes she's better than those men, and she believes often that some or most or all of those men would commit to her long term. And obviously the answer is no, that's not true. These dating apps are for short-term sexual access.
Yeah.
Normal, well-adjusted women do not need to go on dating apps because women do not need an app to get them short-term sexual access. They walk outside and get short-term sexual access. They don't have to have an app. And so that's what you'll find is on these dating apps, you'll have 6 times as many guys as girls on there. And the women on there are just like the way they choose men is just outrageously skewed to like the top.
What about all of this intrigues you? Why is this kind of your brand in a sense?
Because it's something that's easily solvable, maybe not population wide, but for a small group of men that choose to fix it and want to be in the top 15%. It's just never been easier to get into that top 15%. The group of men up there as a percentage has probably never been smaller as a percentage, but the ability to get into it has never been easier because the methods to get in there are shamed by society in general. And so because they're shamed, you see so many men that just don't want to go. They don't do it. I see academics that like say just crazy stuff like there is no crisis in dating and no, women aren't delusional. And it's just like, no, dude, you're saying that because you want women to approve of you and you want money for your academic research. And it's just like, well, because you're saying these things that are empirically not true, you're rewarding bad behavior and you're actually rewarding men for not taking on masculine traits that would make them attractive to women. Here's the thing. If I'm a woman and I'm giving women advice on how to be better at dating men, in some way, I am either taking away power or agency from men. Does that make sense?
Right.
It's just like in chess. As I give one side more power, I have to be taking away from the other side. So if I were to hear a woman giving really good advice to women, it would sound somewhat toxic to me. It would be like, oh, like don't answer his messages on time and like give him mixed signals and like show up on time sometimes and not sometimes, and then like dress really sexy and then don't have sex with him to make him wait. Like these are toxic, very like manipulative ways of getting men to chase. Does that make sense?
Right.
So if I did the same thing for men and I was giving men advice on like how to be better with women, from a woman's standpoint, they're gonna sound toxic. But unfortunately, if you don't do these things, you don't really stand a chance because the guy who is doing these things is taking your girl. That's just a matter of fact. And that's the thing. Like it's one of these things like, I don't want to play this game. Like whenever I hear men or women say, I don't want to play this game. And my thought is like, gravity doesn't need you to believe in it for it to be real. Like gravity still affects you no matter how much you don't believe in it. Flat earthers. It's still real. And this game that you're playing all of us are playing a game because none of us are walking around in a clown suit like smelling like dookie. Like we are all dressing to a certain extent to be attractive to the opposite, or at least presentable to the opposite sex. We're all playing the game regardless of whether or not we want to play the game. And so when people say, well, I don't want to play this game, well, it's still being played for you. Like no matter if you're a guy and you're like, I'm going to be myself and I'm not going to improve and I don't really care what these women want. That's fine. You can do that. And the women will justifiably never have sex with you also. Both of those things are true. You see what I'm saying? So that's the difference. The difference with women is that women can just be in default mode and not improve themselves, whatever, and get any relationship they want. Not any, but like a lot of relationships. Men can't do the same. We have a burden of performance in general. Men have a burden of performance, and if they don't perform and if they're not useful to other men or useful to other people in general, then they're not going to be able to get the woman that they want, unless they have something outrageously going for them, like they're born famous or incredibly good looking or something like that.
Oh, I mean, you see people who are just like, like Chet Hanks, for example, probably does really well.
Yeah,
but he's a total. I don't know Chet Hanks personally, but like from what you see and hear, it's like he sounds like a total mess.
I've messaged him a couple times.
Right.
Wes Watson was talking to me about having him on my show. I was thinking about having him on. But yeah, I mean, it could be something like that. I mean, I'm sure he does well with women, probably because of some level of notoriety or fame. And that's the other thing that's really sad. There's this thing called Parallel Live, and it's an app that was created where it looks like you're on Instagram Live, but it's not Instagram Live. It's a fake Instagram Live where it looks like 50,000 people are watching you, and you can record the interactions. And you just see these guys using Parallel Live, and the women see that 50,000 people are watching you, and they're in relationships, they have boyfriends, and they start grinding on your dick and just like groping these guys. It was crazy just because the guy has 50,000 people watching, and it's fake.
Do they show comments too?
Yeah, it'll show comments.
Comments is always the tell.
Yeah.
For people who are like growing like their accounts in a fake manner and just buying bots and whatever, it's like if you have 100,000 followers but 13 comments.
Well, the problem is that it works sometimes. That's still like there's guys out there who will buy 5 million followers and they don't have the comments to back it up, but women will still go out with them. Like the women women aren't going to go on Social Blade and look and see when you got all your interactions. They're not going to do that. And so in essence, what happened, and this often happens with me. Some of my female friends or my girlfriend's friends, they'll ask me about a dude, and I tend to spend 5 seconds looking him up on Social Blade, and I can tell everything about the guy. And I'll tell her real quick. I was like, but women don't do that inherently for themselves often, and they end up in relationships where it's like they're only with this guy because of a feeling, and they're not looking at objective reality around them, and it ends up working out in a mess.